This is Trajano Roberto from Media Flamengo for more one Global Flamengo. I'm here with Ross Fileccia. First, Ross, I would like to thank you for your participation in this live. And can you tell us, please, how did you find about Flamengo and how you start sort of knowing a little bit more about the club? Thanks, Ross.
Well, thanks first of all, Trajano, for having me on here. And yes, well, I'm a big fan of the World Game here in Melbourne, Australia. Um, I have recently started following the Brazilian League on watching it on beIN Sports, and I have developed a relationship with Flamengo, as you know, the biggest team in the Brazilian league. So, so yes, yeah.
That's good. And Ross, if, since you follow the world game or the global game, and so I guess you spot few players playing for Flamengo that play in Europe before, and any particular player that or particular players that you sort of reminds you when they're now playing for Flamengo?
Oh yes. Well, one player that definitely comes off the mind is Diego, because being a Juventus supporter by heart, I mean, he was with Juventus for a brief period, although troubled by injuries. He's a very talented player. And yeah, I definitely enjoy watching him play for Flamengo.
Okay, that's good. That's Diego Ribas, and we also have another Diego playing as
Oh,
a
yes, of
goalkeeper.
course. Diego Alves, who played for Valencia.
Correct.
Correct, yeah.
And I think not sure if you probably know as well. There was another player from Colombia that is now on loan for Flamengo, Moreno. You
Oh,
sort of
yes. Yeah, Marlos Moreno. He's a prospect for Manchester City, is that correct?
correct, yeah,
Yeah.
and they play in there. And Rose, and in terms of style of football, around the world, I mean, I guess you've been watching English game and Italian, Spanish, and now Brazilian. So, do you have sort of a preferred way to play football, or you are very open?
Well, for me, I definitely take a preference to the English Premier League because I love the game at a fast pace. But
Okay,
I feel as though Brazilians can adapt to maybe a way of the English game in terms of speed, but also the technical side of the Spanish league as well, which is good.
okay. And I guess you heard recently about the Vinicius Junior, the youngest player from Brazil, from Flamengo that is moving to Real Madrid, and
Well, yes, I think it's believed 50 million, is it, euros?
correct, yeah, 50
Yeah.
million. And so it's a bit of wouldn't say surprise, but a lot of money for untested player. How do you feel about paying that amount of money?
Well,
For,
he's I guess he's proven at youth level for Brazil under 17s that he's definitely got a lot of potential. I mean, 50 million is a lot of money for an unproven player, but it's definitely a gamble. But I definitely seeing him follow the footsteps of recent players like Gabriel Jesus and make an impact in the European stage for sure. He's a very exciting prospect.
yeah, that's right. And Ross, any particular Flamengo player from the past, maybe distant past, that sort of rings the bell to you that in connection players that play at high level in Europe and went back to Brazil and play for Flamengo?
Well, of course, the biggest name that comes to my mind is Ronaldinho, and I don't have to say much more about him. He's a legend everywhere around the world.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess he ended up playing for AC Milan in Italy as opposed to Juventus. But
Yes, I know. I wasn't happy about that, but I still appreciate watching him, even if it was against my side.
that's right. And so, any other sort of knowledge, Ross, you have about Flamengo? Reading or just watching or just talking to people. What's the first thing comes to your mind about Flamengo in Brazil?
Well, Flamengo. For me, I see them as the powerhouse of the Brazilian league. So, what if I were to talk about the Italian league? I would say Juventus is the team that everybody aspires to join, and Flamengo is that team in Brazil, similar to say maybe Manchester United in the Premier League as such, and they have a rich history, and that's why I took a liking to them, and I love their style of play as well. I mean, I've only recently followed Flamengo, but this season has they've got off to obviously an incredible start, being on top of the ladder. And yeah, just every time I've seen them play, it's very exciting to watch.
That's good. Yeah, I guess what you mentioned about Juventus and Manchester United is, I guess, the benchmark of their respective league,
Yes, yeah.
and that I guess Flamengo had a trouble history just now in 2018. Now start picking up, and probably a long time ago, on the top players for Flamengo, maybe one of the best players, Zico, ended up playing for in Italy as well. I'm not sure if you heard about Zico before.
Oh yes. Hang on. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he played for Udine.
Correct. Udinese
Yes.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
And
He's a legend as well.
exactly, there's a lot of players. And so, how do you see the global game now, Ross? All those, especially you know, English clubs in Asia become very popular,
Hmm.
and what about clubs in South America, maybe especially from Brazil? Do you think the exposure now is sort of a diminishing? What do you think?
Well, actually, I think from my knowledge in Australia, I think with being sports and as such, we're getting more exposure to the Brazilian league and other South American leagues as well, and we were able to watch the the matches live as well, which is good. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
So that yeah, I guess TV exposure is the main thing, whereas in the
yeah,
past was more friendly games that was pretty restricted, and
that's true. Yeah,
exactly, and
um,
so
everyone knows about like all the incredible Brazilian players, but we know them from the European leagues, like in Spain, Real Madrid and Barcelona, and all these. But we don't know where they started off, and we all know they started off in the Brazilian league.
yeah, that's
So
right, and
yeah.
so I guess one thing I noticed a lot in those global leagues, and especially in Brazil, they always sort of highlight where the player comes from,
Hmm.
and sometimes you hear that the English league. I'm not sure if they focus too much on that, where the player actually came from, as opposed to just say that playing here, playing there. Uh, do you hear those things where the player start his career?
Well, I can give you an example. For an Australian player that's doing well in the Premier League, his name's Aaron Moy, and he started off in the Australian League, the A League, and then he got signed by Manchester City. So he was playing for Melbourne City, my hometown team, and then he got signed by Manchester City, and then on signed to Huddersfield Town, and he's doing very well in the Premier League at the moment. So, yeah, I guess there is a little bit of exposure as to where the players originally came from.
Yeah, I think it's very important because
Mm.
it just shows that those clubs invest in developing those players, as opposed
Yeah,
to
exactly.
going out and about and just sign the best and I guess disregard the youngsters that play for the early age groups.
Hmm.
And now, Ross, I guess with the World Cup coming up now, and I'm not sure if you know, but the Brazilian league is going to stop. I think it's all leagues must stop because of the FIFA imposed that,
Okay, okay.
and so what is your expectation? Change a little bit from, I guess, from Flamengo. What do you expect in this World Cup coming
Well,
up?
my expectations in the World Cup. Oh, good question. Well, honest, I think this World Cup in particular is very open. Where I think there's maybe 8 countries who are equal favorite. So it's going to be very exciting because it's such an even playing field. I definitely think that Brazil has a great chance to go all the way in this World Cup. Although it's in Europe, but that should it shouldn't matter because a lot of their star players play in Europe as well. So it's going to be very exciting. Definitely, can't
Yeah,
wait.
yeah, exactly. Especially, I mean, if most of the players play in Europe, they know already. I mean, they are familiar with, I guess, the opponents. So
Mm,
shouldn't be any
exactly,
surprise.
exactly.
Shouldn't be any surprise in the for this. So we, I guess, a very long cap with lots of games, and
Hmm.
sometimes, especially in the knockout phase, if you have a bad game, you're out. There's no way to recover. That's the
That's right, and it's the best players against the best players representing their country as well. So um, that's what I love most about it—the passion involved.
exactly also.
Singing the national anthem and just giving your all for your country, which is great.
That's right, and also. Uh, Bad or not is if you had a bad game of the day, you're out, and that's it. You go home, and
That's it.
there's
Yeah.
no
There's no second chance.
no second chance. So you got to be on the top all the games to win the trophy. Yeah?
Hmm.
And
Yep.
now going back to Flamengo, and I guess one particular player, since you also follow Juventus in Italy, there's some strong rumors that Flamengo has another player called Lucas Paquetá. And
Yes.
there's very high speculations out there that one of the clubs they want to sign is Juventus, and he's a 20 years old midfielder, box to box midfielder. You know those players that they've got a good defensive skills and also attacking, good dribbler. It's very excited player to watch, uh, and so I guess always they like or not the agents link players to top clubs, regardless if the club is actually interested or not. And have you sort of heard about him before, Rosa?
Yes. Well, from what I've seen of him, he definitely looks like a prospect. Taking a boxer, technical, a team like Juventus could definitely um, mold him into being a world class player. So I think his attributes would suit the Italian league very very well, and he's only 20 years old. But I'm not sure what price was on his head. Do you know, Trajano? Is the
Uh,
price they're saying?
there was a bit of some people say 40 million euro, others 30, and no one really knows. And also there was an issue that when Flamengo signed Diego Alves, the goalkeeper from Valencia.
Yes.
There was actually a preference for Valencia to sign Lucas Paqueta in the contract. They expressed some clubs they want to have the first or the last choice in terms of beating if someone else offer more money. And but I'm not sure how strong financially Valencia is compared to Juventus. And so so Juventus has a strong sort of I get desire to get a big top club in Europe from what I can see.
Most definitely, Juventus uh, is the team in Italy that every player dreams of playing for. Well, in my opinion, I mean, you've got a lot of powerhouses in AC Milan and Inter Milan and Roma and Napoli as well. But I do think Juventus winning consecutive titles in a row, they just they're really striving to get that Champions League that they desire, and with all the resources that they have, and they're definitely in a good financial state, so they will be signing all the players they need to to get that Champions League that they really desire, which I think they're close to getting.
Interesting you saying that because I guess in a wouldn't say distant past, but there was always a strong connection between Flamengo and AC Milan, even some Flamengo players to Italian clubs. Then lately has diminished, and there's a stronger link now to the Spanish league. How do you, in terms of development, let's say a player like Lucas Paqueta, that the speculation here is going to go to the Italian league, and how do you feel in terms of a league to develop players? I guess Spanish the only two clubs there, Real Madrid and Barcelona, whereas Italian league is a bit more clubs on the sort of on the top level.
Well, I feel as though a player like Lucas Paqueta would probably, if he were to join Juventus, their their aim would be to send him on loan to another Serie A team, and they would send him to a team that would give him enough playing time to experience the Italian league and develop him as a player until he's ready for a team like Juventus.
Yeah, that's no, that's good. Fair enough, because a lot of those Flamengo players, there's no point going to Europe and sit on the bench,
Exactly,
and
exactly.
sit there on the bench and not just watching there. You don't develop sitting on the bench there. And
Hmm.
there's another Flamengo player, not sure if you heard as well, just a bit of I guess a beef or whatever you want to call it, was a striker called Felipe Viseu was signed by Udinese. After there was some disagreement between the player and Flamengo as a club, and he ended up signing a contract. So he's leaving Flamengo now mid-year, and so Flamengo has been developing a lot of young players lately, and
Yes,
and so just the last game, Fluminense nil Flamengo 2. There was actually six players in the squad in the starting level came from the youth development from Flamengo. So it's good. So how do you think that the clubs in Europe, they're not really patient in developing youngsters? They just go for a quick return and get players developed by somebody else. Or what do you think, Ross?
well, yes, I think you really notice that in teams such as Manchester City, where unless you're already a superstar at a young age, you don't really get the playing time to develop into being that player. And it's very hard to, and it could be frustrating for a young player, especially these young players that have a lot of potential from Flamengo, to just sit on the bench, although they're at a very big club in Europe. But I think it's very important for them to develop themselves in Europe or wherever they go and just get the playing time that they need, as opposed to just sitting on the bench and playing in the reserves as
Yeah,
such.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's good. And yeah, it's only two games now to go for Flamengo before the break for the World Cup. Flamengo playing home against a club called Paraná from the state south of Brazil, and I think they're sitting second, third, last in the ladder. So on paper, it should be easy, but in football, there's nothing easy. It's the only sport, I guess, that a weaker team can always have a chance to win the game, and
That's correct. There's
and
no guarantees.
no guarantees. That's the beauty of the world game, I guess. At least you always have a chance. Maybe
That's
not a
what
high, not a high chance, but you still have a chance as opposed to basketball, where probably the chances are very low. And
that's the romance. I feel, yeah.
that's romance. And then Flamengo, I think it was on Thursday next week, plays against a club from São Paulo called Palmeiras. That's actually the club was founded by Italians from the community. It was a bit sort of controversy, and they used to have a name, just for information, called Palestra Italia. Up to the Second World War, they had to change the name, of course, because Italy was on the side of Germany, and in Brazil was the side of the U.S. And but they have a very strong Italian community supporting this in another state, whereas Flamengo is a club, a national club that supporters all over the place, and and now it's starting growing more and more outside Brazil as well. So, Ross, for us to start finishing this live here first, thanks for your time. And
Oh, no
what
worries at all, Trajano.
what do you think just before we go and roughly, being very unstable the Brazilian league and you've been following sort of recently Flamengo and what do you think those why for instance the English league has been unstable last few years as well. I think the competition it's very high now in clubs buy and sell players. What do you sort of think that why those leagues the Italian league has been stable now because Juventus is probably the strongest, and and the,
Yes, correct.
and whereas Brazilian league is being every year has got a different winner, and hopefully this year Flamengo will. So what do you think that is the most important for a club to, in case of Juventus Italy, what has been I guess the recipe for success in Italy to become a top club for maybe I'm not sure how many years now, 5 or 6 years that Juventus has been on top.
Yes, I think it's six Scudettos in a row.
Whew.
Yeah.
So,
So
so what do you think is the main what's main contribution to that? Players, coach,
I guess
president.
I guess it's a combination of consistency. Um, I was watching the documentary on Netflix. It's First Team Juventus, and it gave you a look into the start of the season and ongoing throughout the season of Juventus and how they strive for success, and they would not look far ahead to. They would not look too far ahead. They take each game um, very important and focus on the game that's ahead of them. And I think the success lies because although they've achieved a lot of success, they still have that hunger and desire as well to be the best. And that's why a team like Juventus will always succeed because there's only certain players like in Juventus that will succeed. There's a lot of big names that haven't made it in Juventus and they've made it elsewhere, but there's other players that really strive for success and they make it into the Juventus team and they really succeed.
Okay, yeah, no, I think it makes sense. Is I guess consistency and also that take one game by the time as opposed to look too far in front. Just okay, we're gonna play on on Sunday. Let's do the best we can to win this game. Then we think about the next game when it comes.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right because Flamengo, I think was maybe not last year, but year before was just some some jokes going around that the club was smelling the title. was this, was it smelling the title? The title never came because was sort of what to say a joke, and what happened is in the end the opponent said, "Oh, he just he just got to the smell and not he never got to actually get a thing." You know what I mean? And
Exactly. Yeah.
so yeah, now this is you
That's
got to
my
be
point.
yeah, no, you're right. I think that's unfortunately Flamengo. It gets it gets very easy. The supporters get enthusiastic, and all of a sudden the players, the old bandwagon type of thing that
Yep. Yep.
you win even before you win. You talking too much and before get the trophy. The trophy is only win when you raise that after the last game of
E-
the.
exactly. It's not over till it's over.
That's
So
that's that's the way. Yeah,
um,
no. It's
that's true.
it's a good lesson. It's also, I mean, a very strong demand as well. Make sure that the players don't relax. Don't
Don't
you know
relax. That's right.
the focus has to be there and all that time. Ross, for us to finish this live, uh, just tell us just last few words. First, thanks of course for your participation and looking forward since you've been following Flamengo for a short period of time and. What's your you planning to maybe for next time you research around and look a bit more about Flamengo? What's moving forward? What's you think you're gonna be your relationship with Flamengo?
Uh, well, first of all, thanks for having me on here, Trajano. It's been a pleasure. And my relationship, I feel, with Flamengo now is has definitely um, grown. I mean, I started watching the Brazilian league for the maybe the past 2 seasons, and I can now say Flamengo is officially my team, and I'm very excited this season, what lies ahead, and I feel as though there'll be glory at the end of it for Flamengo. So it's going to be a long season, and it's going to be difficult, but I feel as though they've got a very good chance.
Yeah, that's it. Let's hope so. That's Trajano Roberto from Media Flamengo, direct from Melbourne, Australia, also with Ross Felicia, a brand new support for Flamengo, and giving his time on this live. And by the way, for everyone watching now, watching later, it's basically the first live in English about Flamengo, as far as I know. I don't know anyone else has recorded that before. And if you're watching now or later, and yeah, don't forget subscribe to the channel. And hopefully that's not going to be the first and last, but many to come. And would like to thank again Ross for his presence, for his wise words, and Ross has got a lot of knowledge on the global game, following different leagues. And let's see. Let's hope that by the end of the year, Flamengo win few trophies, not only one, but maybe more than one. And that's what we need, because it's been a very long, dry few years for Flamengo not winning anything. So it's about time to start winning now. Nação, Trajano Roberto from Media Flamengo. Saudações rubro-negras. Bye for now.